Doing today, guys? Sam and Alex back with this week's fishing report for you. Starting off in the bay, rockfish. That's what everybody's into right now, of course, because it's been really good out there. I'd say anywhere from probably the bridge all the way down to Chesapeake Beach. There's a lot of great catch and release going on for some of the bigger fish. Really, the key has just been finding the schools of bait, and they're there. They're in pretty good numbers. Whether you want to troll for them, I know some of the guys up here, like Skip Zink's been doing quite well, trolling out, catching a lot of big fish up. I think he's been doing more of that north of Bloody Point area. But once you get around that area, you can start looking for those big schools and casting jigs into it.
Oh yeah, I mean, just like you mentioned, those areas, mouth of the rivers, those are your typical preseason stuff. And if you're out surf fishing anywhere from the shoreline right now, it's probably your best time. Chunk some, LY off Sandy Point, Peak Pier. Those places will be good for you guys from the shoreline to catch a decent trophy size this time of the year. I will say mainly evening when they get a little bit closer, but yeah, that'll be the best bet.
Yeah. And also, especially with the lack of white perch we have in the main part of the bay right now, it's a great time to fish a whole bloodworm on those same areas you want to surf fish at. Bloodworms are great for rockfish, but the problem with them is that the white perch usually tear them up. Without any of those white perch on the main bay, a big, giant jumbo bloodworm or one of the bigger regulars is a great bait for them.
Oh, yeah. Don't be afraid. Put the whole worm in there, right?
Absolutely.
Other than that, you are also going to be catching a mix of catfish. I know there's been some of the guys out there, the charter guys, going out now, like Miss Susie, and anchoring up in some of the points around here, like Podickory Point, certain areas up north towards the Patapsco, where they're catching really, really good numbers of actual blue cats. Now, they range anywhere from, your little 5-pounder to some of those 20-plus pound fish. And all you're doing is just bottom fishing with gut bait.
Yep. As far as up in the creeks, though, I mean, pickerel fishing is still really good right now. I like to start pushing up to the upper reaches of the creeks or the upper part of the river, as these fish are really in spawn mode right now. The pickerel are, so you can find them in a lot of your older areas, but start looking up the headwaters of those creeks and stuff, and the same stuff we always fish. Weedless paddle tails with jig heads, inline spinners, stuff like that.
Right. Now let's switch over a little bit to your freshwater stuff right now, which I know you were doing a little bit of it, and that's the white perch spawn right now going on. So tell us what you saw out there.
The yellow perch are basically fizzled out. If you find any yellow perch, you're going to find them not quite in the upper reaches anymore, but more pushing down towards some of those earlier staging places, like Hillsboro. If you still want to find the yellow perch, you might find some spawned out fish there. But if you start looking at the upper reaches, some of the areas over here, whether that be Beechwood Park, or you push over the shore, areas like Greensboro, there's really upper ends. The white perch fishing is fantastic right now. Don't be afraid to move around. If you got a pair of waders, it'll help you out even more. You can get in the water and start walking around to find those deeper holes. They don't have as much current. Or if you have access to some of the headwaters of those creeks, they're right up there spawning right now. I've also seen some shad mixed in with them. You can see them from shoreline. The water's actually pretty clear right now. Mostly hickory shad. They tend to come up a little bit earlier. Definitely not high numbers, but you could certainly target them and probably pick off a few of those.
Yeah, and for you guys fishing on the western side over here, we've been also getting reports of some decent amount of white perch up down in the Patuxent, down to Route 4, which is Wason's Corner down there, and they're catching a mix of whites on bottom rigs with bloodworms or night crawlers, even grass shrimp, and also catfish. A lot of blue cats mixing in that area. More on the mid-sized stuff, anywhere from 5 to 10 pounds. And for you guys taking trips over to the Potomac right now, I was out there myself, and there's plenty, obviously, blue cats out there up to 50 pounds or so. But for you guys waiting for the shad, once again, up in the upper parts of like Fletcher's Boathouse and all the way to the bridge up there, they're there already. Once again, like Sammy mentioned, they're not in like super high numbers, but we already had the first American cod, which is a little early, and a lot of decent sized hickories. Most people are catching a handful right now, probably say 10 to 12 or so, but that should be picking up here with the,
especially the nice
spring
days we've
coming
had
up
this week. As far as anything else goes, bass fishing, it's still, those fish haven't quite pushed up to those pre-spawn spots you like to see them at in a lot of the lakes and reservoirs. Still seems like they're a few days behind. But when they get up there, it gets hot and fire, right? I mean, throwing crankbaits, any of those moving baits do really well in that pre-spawn application because those fish really need to eat quite a bit to be able to spawn.
Right.
So they really feed up pretty heavily. We have these warmer days going into next week, I wouldn't see why those fish won't start pushing up shallow.
And depending on where you go, like Sammy mentioned, if you're on the eastern short side, especially down in the Blackwater area, the water warms up a little faster over there. So in those areas, you might find them doing a little bit of different things. But snakeheads, bass, and crappie have been the talk on some of those rivers down by the Blackwater area where they're catching crappie on minnows, small jigs, a lot of decent sized bass, and a few snakeheads here and there. So all you got to do is pick one thing, get out there and fish, right?
Yeah. And if you're looking at some of those bigger reservoirs right now, there's a lot of shore fishing you can do right now. Some of them will start opening up to do the boat rentals here soon, but you can certainly start fishing that. And if you're looking for those spots, and reservoirs are big, so it's kind of hard to dissect. But a lot of times this time of the year, I want to look at the northeast end of the lake because that's going to have the most sunlight penetration throughout the day. It rises up there, it stays up there for a lot longer, so you have more time for those fish to push up in that warmer water. So just a couple tips for you on some of those bass fishing. But fishing's really good right now. I mean, it's a great time to be into fishing right now. There's a lot of cool stuff going on.
Yep. Alrighty, guys. So that's it for this week. Make sure you tune in next week, and we'll see you guys again.
Thanks. Have a good one.